Yeah. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. 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 Listen 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 to the Wild Die Podcast.
Welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast, episode 104. My name is Eric Lamoureux, aka No Sleeves McGee, and here are my co-hosts, Gary McCallum and Carl Kiesler. Morning, guys.
What's going on there, sweetness?
What's up, guys?
Yeah, we're fresh off games last night. Gary and I playing in a Furious 5 game by our buddy John Steve, and Carl played some rippers, so it was a savage Saturday night.
It was pretty savage, man. That conviction token, holy jeez.
It was very savage. when I critically failed my casting power, so got some blowback from that. So.
Well-timed critical fails. I think we only had one crit fail. One guy got one crit fail. The rest was acing all the time. It was like
nice.
27, 28, 40-something, and a bunch of acing. One guy cast a quickness power on us, so that means double movement, and you ignore one multi-action penalty. So I was going, 2 or 3 actions every round, making a task, casting a spell. Not a spell, like a power, the stun power as a leaping kick or something like that. And then I had invisibility, and I was very small, so I was like at -10 to be hit.
What did you guys play? Like, what characters you were?
I was Mantis.
What about you, Gary?
Yeah, I was Monkey.
Nice.
I was kind of hoping at some point I could fling poo, but I didn't get around to it.
It's a special attack.
No. At one point, I straightened my tail out and did a golf attack with Mantis, wherein I took my tail and I bent it into a golf club, and then I just teed them off into like a super far away group of other bad bandit crocodiles. What were they? Bandits?
Croc bandits. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
that's a new take on the Colossus Wolverine fastball special.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Carry me in a basket. And,
Eric did all of that, and then he added the conviction token on top of it, which was a new thing for me. Seeing the conviction token adds a D6 to all of your rolls, and then he's got all of that other stuff going on as well. There was like some 30 plus rolls for a good 5 minutes. Wow. He's like, I'm going to spend a penny and keep this going. No, you could do that. John Steve was kind of like, Yeah. Note to game masters out there: do not give all your players conviction tokens.
Oh my gosh!
Once I started doing that, then everybody else started doing it. Except Gary, he was like, he just gave up. He's like, I'll just let Manus wipe the floor.
I ran in and saw this great big bone statue thing, and Monkey wasn't having any of it. He was like, okay, I'm not going to be the first one through the door. We'll leave that up to Tigress. So I turned around, ran out, then I got stunned. Then I rolled 3s on my stuns, or I was asleep is essentially what happened. They put me to sleep for 3 rounds. So I just sat there watching Eric mop the floor. Like he's like killing 5 things at a time. I was like, okay, this is still pretty cool. I got to tell you, man, I really miss the acing dice of Savage Worlds. It's so much fun watching those things go off. Everybody's like, ooh, and because you can only see the shadows, right? But yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
All right, so today the topic, session 1. So we had session 0 last episode, and I promise we won't name all those episodes, session 1, 2, 3, all the way to a campaign. It's just, I figured, we established a campaign with session 0. Now, how do you kick off your campaign? And gonna ask the guys some questions because they got different styles and different approaches. So yeah, let's take it to the edge. Let's start with Gary, because Gary tends to run pre-made stuff, and he likes plot point campaigns, especially the 50 Fathoms one. And for him, how do you start it is a bit different, because it's basically, well, how does the book start it, But do you change anything about the start as written in the book? Do you have some kind of prologue where the characters are introduced, or you use a different hook to get them started, or you just go straight up from the book?
Yeah, all of that really for me just depends on what I'm running. For my 50 Fathoms campaign, for example, I started that off as everybody was humans. They were actually playing themselves. So I had, which was really kind of a sort of a learning thing as well. It's really hard to make a character of yourself because a lot of people don't want to blow smoke up their own ass. Do you know what I mean? So like these people are like, well, I don't want to put down that I'm like a D10 in strength kind of a thing, So, but my 50 Fathoms campaign started with them playing themselves. They were playing their own characters. So they had their current life situation. Like the one girl that I was playing with, she had a son, and she was they were all going to this pirate ship, which was a dating cruise. They went out in the dating cruise on the pirate ship. The tornado storm hit, kind of a thing, and they wake up in 50 Fathoms land. So that's how I started that one. That brings everybody together. Most of the people on the boat died. All of the extras were taken away, except for like the captain and stuff like that. And then it was just the players that I was playing with were sort of the crew. And that's how I started that one. And then it was all blank slate. You're in a new place. Your cell phones don't work. Strange monsters, came out. The raptor comes out in the first mission and stuff like that. So that's how I started that one. But it just depends on. It sort of depends on the story that you have in mind. If you're going to start in media res, you kind of have to sort of know the pre-story. Does that make sense? Whereas with 50 Fathoms, I didn't have to worry about that. Your pre-story was your own life, and you bring that into the game with you. So was that the first? That wasn't the first time you had ran 50 Fathoms. So is it that you decided to start it that way because you wanted to change it up a little bit so it wouldn't be the same as the last couple times you'd run it? Yeah, see, because one of the few times, or the second time that I ran, the first time that I ran it, they just played players from the books. They were like, the different Grell and whatnot, but I was kind of hoping I would get more player investment when really the problem was the captain. Everybody wants to be the captain, kill the captain. Everybody wants to run their own pirate ship. So it doesn't matter if you're friends because you're just playing a game, right? But yeah, I found that people would just take out the captain. Made me realize that nobody should be the captain. The captain should be the captain, and he gives you the orders and sends you off on missions. He should be his own unit kind of a thing, separate from the players. So there wasn't much character investment. My players, because they were also young, were just constantly attacking one another to be the captain. They're throwing themselves overboard, and you know what I mean? It was a bit of a gong show. So I was kind of hoping second time around I would have a little bit more player investment if they played themselves, because they're not going to throw player X over kind of a thing, right? I don't want to name anybody's names.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about you, Carl? Do you follow more like a slow burn where there's exposition at first and introduction, or you like to throw them right into the middle, right in the middle of the action, as they say in media res?
I kind of do a slow thing at the beginning, the very first session I do, even though we've already did that session 0 where everybody knows who everybody is playing. It's usually been a week, 2 weeks, maybe longer since we start that first section. So I like to have a spotlight on each character as I bring them into the game. I've done this with my last couple of games, and it's worked out really well. So I would highlight each character. I'm like, okay, you're coming in, like my Deadlands game. They were all family, so they know each other, but players might have forgotten, which I think some of them did, like who everybody was. And so I spotlight each character as they come into the town, the old town that they used to live in. and I put that spotlight on each one of them. I do a little scene or whatever interaction with an NPCs, and I have them describe what they look like and stuff like that. So it's fresh in everybody's mind at that first session that boom, this is who that character is, and as they come in. So that's kind of the way I like to do it.
Carl, have you seen the Sounds Like Crows podcast, or have you listened to it at all?
Oh yeah, that's where I got direct inspiration from my Deadlands game. It was very, I stole it directly from that, and I told the guys too. I said, "This is amazing what you guys did. I want to borrow it from my game," and they're like, "Yeah, that's cool." So yeah, it was amazing.
It's a very interesting way to sort of get it off and running, and I've done the same thing too with my other campaigns. With my when I start every session the same way. You know, really? The camera opens on this scene, and then I will go into like a refresh kind of a deal as to what happened in the previous ones, and then I start with a character, and we pick it up from there, and away we go.
Yeah, they talk about that in the SWAT Jumpstart. If you guys can get that by Chris Landauer, it's pretty cool. I think they wrote a whole section in that little Jumpstart. I think it was the Sound Like Crows guys about talking in camera terms and stuff like that, or spotlight, and the camera pulls in and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a cool idea to do, and it's cool to integrate that into your game because people get it. So
what about you, Lamoureux? How do you do it?
Yeah, how do you do it?
Shed your wisdom on us.
Well, since I tend to run episodes instead of a long story arc, I guess I just jump right into it. I tend to prefer in media res. I think when the faster you can get them rolling dice and being part of the action, the faster they get into character, I think. I don't know. I've been in campaigns where, there's a lot of exposition, introduction, and just a bunch of talking and not doing anything. And for me, it's harder to get in character when I'm just listening to the GM, or he's asking me to role play a character I don't really know yet, but I get to know my character better after I find out a bit more about the campaign, and by doing things, that's how I define my characters. So I guess in that regard, as a GM, I prefer to get everybody right into the action as soon as possible, and then I'll backtrack and I'll say, okay, you're probably curious as to what you're doing here. Well, 2 days ago you met with this guy who gave you this mission, and then I'll let them ask questions retroactively, and then let it go from there, which kind of leads me to a question I had for you guys too, is that do you prefer, well, I guess it ties in with session 0 too, because that would be established there, but do you prefer when the characters already know each other, or you just go for the typical D&D, you meet in a tavern and then everybody has to role play not knowing each other and trying to feign interest in two other characters, that type of thing? It just feels fake to me, that the whole meet in a tavern and, oh, where are you from? What is your name? And then, just so much fake acting that I'd rather just skip it.
You go, Gary.
Well, what about you, Gary?
What was the question again? It got me laughing, and now I forgot what you were talking about. So you don't like to meet in the tavern?
No. Do you prefer that approach, or that the characters already know each other? Like, I'll start and say, hey, you guys have been adventuring for a little bit. You know each other. You've been on a couple missions, and, introduce your character, blah, 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 and let's get going, instead of going through one session. If, like I said, yeah. Where are you from?
Yeah, I prefer that the players all are invested, is the word I guess I'm looking for. Like, here's sort of the cliche too. You know how the rogue, when you're playing fantasy, always wants to steal from the party? That drives me mental. Like, you're not going to steal from these guys. You're a thief, don't get me wrong, and you'll steal from anybody, but you're not stealing from these guys. You still have a code of honor. Don't be in the dungeon, and when he's trying to kill a goblin to save your dumb ass, start trying to pickpocket a few coppers out of his ass. So, yeah, I like the investment. I want my players to all be invested in somehow. A couple years ago, we played Fiasco, and or I was watching them, Will Wheaton play Fiasco, and one of the things that came up was how you can do this thing where you can describe how you're related to people, and that would be resolved in session 0. But I definitely prefer a little bit of investment. You guys have all been playing together for some time. You know one another. And then bringing other characters in if somebody dies or something like that. Well, I mean, that's just, hey, who are you and where are you from kind of a thing.
I like to, so the question is, whether they know each other or they meet in a tavern type. I think it depends on the game, because I've done it both ways, and they've come out pretty good. So Ghostbusters, nobody knew each other. They were all starting at a job, and it was the first day of job. I did say you guys did go through orientation, so they kind of did know each other, but that was in the background. But the very first time the characters met each other was the first day of the job, and they all got to know each other, and they had to work together. So they had to be kind of as a group. Because it was their own Ghostbusters franchise, so they were all working at the same job. Deadlands, the most recent Deadlands game, again, I stole it from Sounds Like Crows, where they were family, so they knew each other. So that was kind of like they already met each other, they knew each other, they were just getting back together. ETU, I've run it a few times, and in that game, you all are the characters are all at student orientation one night. And they just happen to be in the same group where an older student, a senior, comes up to them and basically tells them, hey, there's some freaky stuff that goes on here at ETU. Keep your head in the sand and keep your nose clean. Just don't worry about it and you'll be fine. And that's where all the players get together, because he's basically telling them, screw everybody else, just worry about yourself and hide. That's where all the players get together, and they're like, hey, like every group I've had, they've all kind of like, hey, that's not cool. We're here to, if there's something wrong going on, tell us, and, maybe we can help it. So that's where everybody kind of didn't know each other, and they all kind of were together. So it depends on the situation. You can spin it or tell it whatever works best for your group. My most recent Rippers game that I'm not running, it was a little awkward. We didn't know each other, and we didn't do a session 0. I basically sent the GM my character. This is how he wanted to run it. That's fine. And the very first scene, we're all at like a big table for dinner, and the NPC says, well, you all are here and you're going to be invited into the Rippers. I'm going to walk away and talk amongst yourself. So it was very super awkward. So we all just sat there and looked at each other. And it was basically like you met in a tavern. And I was like, this is not who wants to speak first. Nobody did. It was odd. I would not do it that way. Yeah.
That's awkward in real life.
Exactly. I would not do that in if I was to run that scene, you could do it that way, but have an NPC stay there and maybe break the ice and maybe divert the conversations and well, who are you? Tell us who you are, and something like that.
Yeah, being a kind of moderator, mediator type of thing. I guess what I'm getting out of this is that it doesn't really matter how you start it. If the characters know each other or not, but it's more about the hook. So how strong of a hook do you need for a good campaign? In other words, can a campaign fail just because the hook was weak, or the hook is just a way to get people together, and then later on people, obviously they want to play the game, so they'll find a way for their characters to be invested into that campaign?
It's I'm going to let Carl go first on this one, but I do want to say that it's funny that when we talk it out, you immediately realize there is no right or wrong answer to the first question.
No,
it really all just depends on sort of the flavor that you're shooting for.
Right. Yeah.
So Carl, hookless.
I like to have a hook, something that kind of draws them in. If it's the Ghostbusters, it's their job. Deadlands, it was their family. ETU, they're all students that and I told them at the beginning, you guys are playing the heroes of this game. Like I set that out. So they're the heroes that want to fight against these things. I have played in games where they've kind of fallen apart because there wasn't a good hook. And the GM was like, okay, I guess that character's leaving because they found no reason why to be with us. So, and it just kind of fizzles out. So definitely, I think a strong hook to bring those characters in, whether they know each other, like what Eric was saying, like they some sort of have some sort of background, or just the fact that you talk it out and say, look, we're playing a game. This is a game that we're going to play maybe once a month, maybe less, maybe more, who knows? But find your own reason to be that hero, to come together and gel with everybody. If not, then maybe that's not the character you should be playing in this game, you know? Maybe that's a character for a solo game or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Lone Wolves.
yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can take that in a group game to so much extent, you know, like, oh, yeah, I get it. You're a lone wolf. Cool. But are you going to come and join us and do this adventure thing? Or are you going to do your own thing every 5 minutes? You're going to pull the GM away and, you know.
Send him little secret notes.
Dude, we had a guy like that. Like every character, he wanted to be by himself, and he kept sending notes to the GM. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. It's like 2 games.
Do you want to be my boyfriend? Yes or no?
It's like, okay, I got to bring him in the other room. I'm like, do you really? Can we just all play together? I mean, it's like you're spending half the time in the other room telling him secrets.
I feel like that was a note that young, explorative Eric sent to somebody at some point. You know what I mean? Those early preteen days before he, you know.
Especially since I played with family, so that's not awkward at all. Huh?
You're from Quebec. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
The French are very liberal.
Yeah. No shame.
I feel like your session 1 needs to be solid, no matter what. Like you need multiple hooks with barbs on every one of them. Throw some good bait on there and the whole 9 yards. But as a game master, you need to be like super prepared for session 1. Your session 1 should be solid. You really want to get your players involved, invested, ready to go, as opposed to just sort of being floppy. And this is why I'm such a prepper and I enjoy the railroad so much. It's because if you sat down at a table, and you might be a good storyteller, maybe I'm not. I'm you know, but the way I look at it is like you got to have a solid idea as to what's going on, so that as a game master, it's like, this is the way I equate it. I'm trying to put my thoughts together in my brain here, but the reality is like if you play the same adventure over and over again, you don't sort of need to go back and read your notes. You know how to run that adventure, so you're more confident. And I feel like maybe that's what you need. You need to know your session 1. It has to be a good game, and you got to be confident about it and have a solid story, right, so that you can get the players involved. And then if you're one of these, you know, willy-nilly, no railroad track driving, you know, game masters that just want to do everything by the fly, sure, then you can slack off a little bit and go that road. Right, Eric?
Yeah, well, sometimes I do it that way. But like I said, recently I've been running more pre-made adventures. Like we just concluded our Deadlands, and it was the Night Train 2 that I ran. And I mean, I changed a couple things here and there, but it was mostly just straight from the book, and that's fine too. And that's why I ran that one, because I believed in the hook. I liked how, I mean, they were just hired for a job, but then it turns out to be different job totally, you know. And I liked how it built the tension all the way to the last 2 acts. So yeah, I mean, it depends on the game, but I just thought of something, and maybe it's a little bit of a tangent, but it's so some games, some settings for Savage Worlds, or maybe the homebrew like Carl ran Ghostbusters. Do you think that some settings have better hooks built in from the get-go? Like you especially the new Deadlands now, where you're part of the Twilight Legion, so you have the hook right there. You're supposed to be fighting evil, so you start out as that. You mentioned ETU, you're students, and you go through orientation, so it's all baked into the setting. The GM doesn't have to work hard to come up with a hook. But then you think of games that are more kitchen sink, like D&D Forgotten Realms or something like that, where there's no baked in hook whatsoever. The GM has to come up with one. Either you're part of a guild or adventuring group, or a mentor wizard gives you a mission. So do you prefer games where the hook has already been taken care of for you, or you prefer the challenge of coming up with your own hook?
Gary, do you want to?
Oh, that was for me? I was waiting for Carl to answer that.
Sorry. You want me to answer?
Yeah, no, I'm good to go.
Okay.
I really enjoy pre-written material. I often don't have time to think of my own stuff. And here's the other thing too, the other part of the deal. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of experience, and they're really good storytellers. Maybe, not maybe, definitely more so than I am. And so to run or to poo-poo on pre-written modules and the dialogue in a box kind of stuff, I think is very pompous, because you may be good at what you do, but you don't discard the stuff that other people have written. There's some fabulous freaking writers. But yeah, I definitely like to, I like the pre-written stuff. I prefer, it gives me sort of everything I need. I still consider myself a bit of an artist, because I will take that lump of clay, that story, and I will mold it into my own thing. I don't want everybody.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, with 50 Fathoms, there's already a hook in there, which is people were on the seas and they end up in Charybdis, but you still change your hook for that adventure, where people played their own, they played themselves. So I guess you do a bit of both at the same time. You'll still come up with your hooks, but what you're saying is that if given the choice, you'd rather just use the baked in hooks.
Yeah, and then maybe amplify it a little bit because of experience. Do you know what I mean? They're just giving me a lump of clay and telling me, here's your story is the lump of clay, and I'm going to change it into whatever I need it to be. That's even more exciting. I think that playing your own player, you're playing your own person, gives you more buy-in, even though it was very hard to make characters and stuff like that. Like, they were really incentivized to get back, except for one guy who got off at the first port, and then he just went and lived in like Booty Bay. He was like, I'm out. So, I mean, he didn't care. He was happy to be in Fantasyland, living a pirate life. So,
see you guys later.
Yeah.
He was like, adios. Along came a grail with the friggin' what do you call those balls? The battle balls or something like that. It's like a cannonball in a chain. He's like, I'm playing this guy. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I kind of do it the way Gary does it too. I like the pre-written stuff. I really do. And it's not a cheap way or anything like Gary said. It's there for you to change. You don't have to run it verbatim. If you do, that's great. I mean, that's what it's there for. But if you want to change it for your group or for your players or the different characters that they bring to the table, that's even better. I mean, you're tweaking that setting, that first game, that hook for your characters, for your players. So they should be more invested. It should drag them in even more. Should bring them in even more invested into the game. So I do it just kind of exactly how Gary does it. ETU was pre-written like that, and I ran it verbatim because I thought it was a great hook. I thought it was an excellent hook where the students are basically together and stuff happens that session, like almost immediately right after that orientation, that kind of brings them together where they're fighting against bad stuff right at the get-go. And so there's kind of like that trial by fire that just happens right at the beginning. So yeah, I really like the pre-written stuff. I love it. So,
yeah.
But change it if you want to. It's no big deal.
Yeah. For me, it was like with Night Train 2, I bought and read Night Train 1, which is a classic.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the hook wasn't as good.
Right.
The difference was that in Night Train 1, they just stumble upon this town that's, experiencing some problems. I'm not going to spoil anything. And then you basically expect the characters to really be invested into, solving this mystery and not just saying, screw that, we're out of here, because it's overwhelming. Instead, Night Train 2 sort of builds it up a little bit. They get into something that they think is going to be straightforward, but then things get creepier and creepier, and then before you know it, they're stuck in it and they can't. I mean, I guess they could run away, but then there's also other guys just outside the town that can get you too. So I just the hook is really important for me if I'm gonna run something pre-written. If the hook is weak or I can't think of an alternate one, I'm not going to run this adventure or this setting. Yeah, I'll pick a setting with a strong hook for the players to get together first.
I think Pinnacle's getting much better at writing those hooks too. I think as you can see their products coming out, I think they're, especially with the new Deadlands, like you said, they're all kind of are together. Like the Flood, when I ran that long ago, I kind of took out the beginning part because I didn't really care for the hook too much, where they kind of all stumbled together and, adventure. And I changed it because it wasn't to my liking, to my group. I didn't think they would go for it, but I think they're getting so much better at it. I mean, it's like, boom, let's go and play. This is the hook. Bam. We're all together, so.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a thing with session 1, man. I really feel like this is the most important session.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Session 0, without a doubt, is I don't really do them because I find them boring. Sitting around watching people make characters is not my jam, especially for doing that for 2 hours. I understand the importance of it, but session 1, really know your shit. Sorry, I probably should have said really know your stuff. I'm going to make Eric edit that. Read that campaign multiple times. Have your settings prepared. Make sure you got all your monster stats so you're not fumbling around for stuff, because it's that slow pause during the fumble that can just sort of like.
All right. Well, I think we covered everything we could this morning. So, let's wrap this up. So last week, was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago almost now, Wild Die Harder, our debut on Twitch. That went well. At least there were some people in there, most of them friends of Carl in the chat.
Yeah, you can really tell of the three of us who has the most friends.
The most fans for sure. So we showed our setup or props and stuff. Also talked about Deadlands a little bit, and that's available now on YouTube. So if you look for the Wild Eye podcast on YouTube, it's available there as a video on demand. And our next Wild Eye Harder has already been booked for October 30th. So Halloween special. And that's going to be about Deadlands again with special guest John Goff. So Mr. Deadlands. I mean, he's worked on Classic, Weird West, Noir, Hell on Earth, Lost Colonies, and now he's working on Dark Ages. So, I mean, that should be fun for Halloween. Scary, Mr. TPK himself. So tune in for that next month for Halloween. All right, so this is Eric saying, well, because we were talking about Deadlands and the campaign I just wrapped up, beware of the nose ferrets.
This is Carl saying, do you want to Benny that?
Yes, please. This is Gary saying, keep your pants on, keep it fun. Thanks, everybody. We're out.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Wild Eye Podcast. If you would like to get in touch with us, our email address is thewildeye@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and now Twitch. We also have a Patreon at www.patreon.com/thewildeye. The Wild Eye Podcast would like to thank the following patrons: Uncle J. Raz, Rob Towell, Conrad Erasmus Neubert, Corey Judd, Emma Wakeland, Kevin Stanley, Perry Chalmers, Ray Aracia, Dan Brown, Yan Jetmar, Manuel Sams, Mr. Stagg, Zovia RPG Maps, Chris Grant, Robert Dorgan, Andy Hall, Brian Kaser, Darrow Catsier, Jans Karnheim, Patrick Greenlaw, Sid the Squid, the Digital Dungeon Master, Knuckle Dave Anderson, and Tori Bjertnes Peterson. Thank you. We'll see you later.